Hi, I'm your host, Denice Smith, and you're watching Dare to Dream. Our motto is Dare to Dream. If you have the deep determination to succeed, you will not fail. So continue to dare to dream with us today because we are talking about real estate. Real estate. You want to stay and find out more information before you leave where you are in real estate. So we're going to talk about what your housing rights are in real estate. So continue to watch me today. I want to tell you a couple of people that you might get involved with in the buying process. First, you need to find yourself a very good real estate agent, a real estate broker or real estate agent. A real estate broker is someone that you would work with, supervises a real estate agent. And if you choose a real estate broker, you could decide on if they have those things that you need. Do they have the courteous type of attitude that might help you through the process? Or are they not giving you their time? Or are they a little frustrated in the process? I think you need to choose the proper real estate agent that's going to work with you and help you with your needs. Also, you have to work with a lender. Why you want to work with a lender is because a lender will be able to give you the money so you can purchase real estate. You have to find out whether or not you're pre-qualified in order to purchase real estate. So it's really important that you find a lender that you can work with. So we talked about real estate agent, we talked about lender. Now you need to find, sometimes you might even have to work with a state or local finance agency. There's some nonprofits that will help you to purchase real estate. So you find out which nonprofits that the bank will actually work with. Also, you need to work with a property mechanical inspector. Before you purchase a property, you want to make sure that you know what is wrong with that property. Also, you want to make sure that you work with the right title company. You see, when you purchase a property, you put up a good faith deposit that says, if you accept this offer, that you will be able to cash my check for a deposit, a good faith deposit. What is good as generally a good faith deposit is usually roughly 1% of whatever the sale price is. That's really important. Usually the real estate agent can suggest 3 escrow officers so that you could choose which escrow company you would like to work with. The other one is mortgage insurer. If you decide that you need to have a mortgage company, sometimes you will either get a mortgage company or you can get a bank, but sometimes if you put less than 3% down or even less than 5% down, they might require that you have private mortgage insurance. And if they require that, that's an extra payment that you will have to pay. So investigate that. These are the people and persons that you might have to come in contact with if you decide to buy real estate. The next one is a loan servicer. You see, once the bank actually approves your loan, they might sell that loan to a loan servicer. And if they do, you might get a loan from one particular bank, but then you get a letter in the mail that says, we are now the company that's servicing that loan. So you should know who you are working with. So when you get a loan from the bank, you could ask them, do you usually sell your loans, or will I be able to have this loan for the next 10 years? They'll tell you. They might sell all of their loans, therefore you might have to change the servicer of that bank. But your terms will not change. Your terms will always be the same. So we're going to talk about right now, since you know the players as to who you have to work with, now we're going to talk about what are your housing rights. As you can see, you will deal with a whole lot of people when you're purchasing real estate. But if you're working with a very good real estate agent, that real estate agent is going to help you navigate through the process. You know, for each of these people, it's really important that you have a courteous, knowledgeable person that's going to give you good service. It's important Because you see, that is the person that you're working with from the beginning all the way to the end. You might even become a friend to your real estate agent because it's such a long process. But you want somebody that you enjoy being with, someone you enjoy working with, and someone you trust. That's so important. In fact, you should expect more than just your housing rights. You should expect to be treated honestly and fairly. The Fair Housing Act, it's number 8, the title number 8 of the Civils Act 1988 prohibits discrimination in housing because of race, color, civil origin, religion, sex, handicap, or familial status. Whether you have children or not, no one can discriminate against you. If you feel that you were discriminated against, at the end of the program, I'm going to give you several companies that you can actually contact at any given time that you feel you are being discriminated against. Every city you purchase in should have a company that you can go to, a government agency that you can contact if you feel you've been discriminated against. You need to know your housing rights so that you're not discriminated against. It's very important. The Fair Housing Act covers most housing laws in most circumstances. If you're owner-occupied and you're purchasing 1 to 4 units, then you will fit in this 1988 Civil Rights Act. It's really important that you know your rights. You need to know that if you decide to purchase a piece of property and for some reason the lender denies your loan, it's required of that lender to write you a letter to tell you why they denied your loan. It has to be specifically for a reason. It has to be based on income, credit, housing. But if it's for any of those reasons, it cannot be race, color, national origin, religion, sex, handicap, familiar status, or whether you have children. That covers you, so you cannot be discriminated against. Now, back in the years, they used to do it all the time. But of course, we live in a different generation now. And this new generation needs to go online, find out what your rights are, and find out what can and cannot be done when you're purchasing real estate. I have had several instances that I've been communicating with different companies, whereas they'll deny you. I've had different companies from different banks, different people that have worked with different purchasers that have worked with different banks. And when they get denied, that is the worst thing. But you got to understand that every bank has their own programs. So understand that bank's programs. But if that bank denies you, go to the next bank and go to the next bank. You see, because it's only just one bank. You have choices, and you need to investigate whether you should stay or whether you should leave. Decide if you should stay in the area that you're in and purchase, or should you leave. Find out your housing rights. This is so important. What does this mean in practical terms? What does this mean? If you're selling or if you're deciding that you want to rent a property, let's say you want to rent a property. Over the phone, I'm telling you the practical. You call, you say, I want to rent this property. The people over the phone, they say to you, come on in. The property is available. Then you get there, and then they see you with 12 children, and you're of a different nationality that they thought. And then they say to you, it's not available anymore. That's where discrimination comes in. You got to be real careful. Very, very careful. Because you see, if they told you over the phone, and landlords need to listen up on this too, because if you told a tenant that the property was available, and then they show up, for whatever reason, you decide it's no longer available, you need to be honest with that individual. Yes, you might have rented it over the phone, or you might have rented to someone else, but once you told that person to come down and take a look at that property, you need to know your housing rights. You need to know if that you feel you were discriminated against. You need to know the agencies to call, because you need to report it. Discrimination is against the law, and you need to know what your housing rights are. If someone refuses to rent to you, if they refuse to sell to you, if they refuse to negotiate a house for you, if they make housing unavailable, you ask to see the property and they keep saying, oh, the property's not available, the property's not available, then you need to find out, when will the property be available? And if they can never tell you when the property is going to be available, you need to find out, why isn't it available and why did you advertise it? Because that can be a form of discrimination. You want to, if they tell you over the phone, and I'm speaking in practical terms now, if they tell you over the phone that you have different terms, let's say that you have different terms, maybe over the phone they tell you you'll be able to get a fixed rate. Now we're talking about banks too. If banks or landlord or whatever, they tell you certain terms over the phone and they say to you, this is the situation. And then you get there and they then change up all the terms, nothing like they told you over the phone. You want to be careful that you know your housing rights. You need to be very careful. Provide different housing services. Like over the phone, they tell you these services are available. You get there and they totally change the services that they said were available over the phone. Let's say that they falsely deny that housing is available for inspection, sale, or rental. All of that applies to 1 to 4 units. So this is so important when you're deciding that you want to buy, sell, rent. If anyone denies you access to or membership of a facility or service, such as a multiple listing service related to the sale, rental, listing, or any housing listing, if it's changed or any kind of different, been given to you over the phone, and then you get there and they change on you, you need to know that that's not proper. You need to know what your housing rights are. And if somebody does that to you, then I'm going to give you the different agencies, and you can make a phone call, and there's nonprofit agencies that will help you, and also government agencies that will also assist you in this process. You know, there's called fair mortgage lending practices. And when you have a fair mortgage lending practice, this just means that there's fair lending practices. If you decide that you have been told from a lender standpoint that you feel because of your race, your color, your national origin, your sex, your familial status, or handicap, if you feel that they refused a mortgage loan to you, if you feel they refuse to provide information regarding loans, if you impose different terms or conditions on a loan, if you're discriminated in appraising a property, you know, there's a thing called redlining. Back in the day, before the 1950s, in certain areas, you couldn't purchase real estate. And if you did buy above or below this particular area, you were discriminated against. It was totally against the law. So the laws now have been changed that if any appraiser discriminates against you in any kind of way, they can lose their license. If they refuse to give you a type of loan or even a type of property, whether you rent, you sell, or buying, it's a discrimination if they're doing something that's not proper. So check out your housing rights, and I'll give you this number when we end the program. Again, if they set different terms, understand, we need to talk about those. In addition, if anybody threatens you to buy a property or to rent a property or tries to coerce you in any kind of way, intimidate you, or interfere with any process of you exercising your fair housing right or assisting you or others exercise their rights, if you feel you've been discriminated against, it's important that you make those calls because you need to know your rights. If anyone advertises something to you and then they make a statement and they say to you, they advertise it a certain kind of way, then you need to know that if anything changes, know your housing rights, because you could be in having a form of discrimination. There are additional protections that if you have physical or any kind of mental disability, you have laws to protect you. For more information on your housing rights, again, I'm going to give you the company names. The numbers might have changed. So I'm just going to give you the agencies that you can call, and you can look up, you can Google, you can look up in the yellow pages, you can do whatever you want. But you can find these agencies if you feel you were discriminated against, and I'll give you those companies. Fair housing is a right. Fair housing is a right. And you need to know that you have rights when it comes to purchasing real estate. If you think your rights have been violated, we suggest that you discuss your concerns with a party involved, an attorney, a nonprofit agency. You can call HUD, the Housing Urban Development office closest to you. So there it is. The Housing Urban Development, the office that's closest to you. If you feel that you've been discriminated in any kind of way, then look up that agency. Very important. They have them in every city. They have them in every county. Just find the one closest to you. You could be regional office. You can call the Housing Urban Development's regional office. They're located in Fresno, Los Angeles. They're all over. Find the one closest to you and decide on whether or not you're being discriminated against. And you know, if you decide right now where you are and you're being evicted, I want to talk to you today about that. Because if you're in a place right now, gentrification is real. And why we say, should you stay or should you leave? My recommendation to you would be, if you're being evicted, find out from nonprofit organizations, and they have a few that will protect your rights. And if you want more information on that, you can give me a call, and my number will be on the screen. You can call me anytime. You could ask any questions. And what we'll do is we'll make sure and answer the question on the next segment so that you can find out what your rights are. And if you are a tenant and you're being evicted, there are nonprofit organizations that protect your rights as a tenant. So don't just move out the property because you're being evicted. Find out your rights. If you are one that has been foreclosed on and you're also being put out of your property, then you need to know you also have rights. So find out what your rights are from a nonprofit agency, from an attorney, but find out what your rights are. Just don't move out of the property because you feel your property is being threatened. If you are in foreclosure, then you would want to call the bank immediately. Find out what your options are, even being in foreclosure. You have options, you have rights, and you need to know what your rights are. If you are a tenant or even a person that feels like you no longer can pay your rent, there's also nonprofit organizations that will help you to pay your rent. Look in and find out, investigate, find out what your rights are. You know, even in purchasing real estate, there are nonprofit organizations that will help you to give you a down payment, will help you to give you not only the down payment, but they'll help you even to give you closing costs. So if you want more information and want to know more about that, feel free to call the number that is showing up, and we'll help you in any way that we're able. Real estate is something that you really have to decide on, if it is for you or if it's not for you. But a lot of people right now are getting displaced. And to me, that's a very sad situation. But there's so many people that do not know their rights, that gentrification is something that is causing people to be displaced out of their housing, displaced out of their homes, and where they lived a very long time. So therefore, don't you be the one that just automatically moves out of the property. If you feel that you have no other options at all, you're being threatened to move because you're a tenant, you are being threatened to have to move because you're being foreclosed on, if you're being threatened because you really don't know what to do in regards to real estate, I've been in the business since 1979. I believe that I've been in every aspect of real estate. If I can't help you, I will refer you to somebody that can. Because you see, I feel it's very sad that people are having to move out of their properties when they can stay in their properties. So if you are renting right now and you don't know if you should buy, if you should move, if you should stay, feel free to call that number and I'll be happy to help you in any way. Because I do know that you have more options than you even know about. So find out your options so that you can make the best decision for yourself. You know, there was someone that we were talking to earlier, and the conversation went like this. What should I do if I own 4 pieces of property? What do I do? I have 4 daughters, and I own 4 pieces of property. What should I do? The first thing you should do is first, let's get back to the home remedies. Let's get back to the at-home dinner time, Sundays. Let's get back to eating dinner together as a family and deciding on how can we keep our properties in our generation. You know, our ancestors have passed away and we have properties and all we know to do is to sell them. Maybe we should have dinner every Sundays with our families and decide on how can we keep these properties in the family for the next generations, way after you're gone. Because you see, there's going to be a time where low to moderate income persons are never going to be able to own. So help the next generation. Have dinner. Let's go back to the old way we used to go when we were around the table with our grandmothers and eating every Sunday, and our mothers and our fathers and our grandfathers and our grandmothers. Let's go back to that. And let's communicate with our families and talk about what do we want to do. If any of you own property right now, let's figure out how we can stay in our properties or keep the next generation in our properties. How do we do that? How do we do that? How do we keep the next generations in our properties without selling our properties? Let's talk about that. Let's figure out another way. Let's try to think about, we don't all have to leave. We do not. Some of us can stay. And if you have dinner around the table and you meet and you talk to these 4 daughters and you say, I want you to have each property, each one of them to keep a property. And you tell them, if you get married, make sure that this property is for the Smith generation. I'm a Smith, so I want to keep all properties that I own in the Smith generation. I want to do that. You figure out a way to where if you own property and the bank is threatening to foreclose on it or whatever, let's talk about how you can keep that property for the next generation. Let's try to cure this gentrification. Let's try to stay in our properties. Let's try to do that. And let's try to figure out a way that we can keep our properties, stay in our properties, and keep them for the next 3 generations after us. We can always say, that was the Denice Smith generation that made sure that the next generation will be able to be safe. Keep your properties safe and stay in your properties. And make sure that you know your housing rights to know how to keep your properties. So I said to them, when we talked about the 4 daughters and the 4 pieces of property that they own, I'm not going to tell you how to keep your properties. I'm not even going to tell you what to tell your 4 daughters. But all I'm going to tell you is let's have an active conversation every Sunday at dinner. Let's talk about what happens when I leave, when heavens open up and say it's time for you. What are you going to do about your next generation? Is it going to be better? Or is it going to not be so good? Let's start having dinner with our family and having family relationships again. Let's do that. And let's talk about how we can stay in our properties and not have to leave. And if you want to purchase property, let's talk about that too. And let's make a sound investment so that you don't have the F word, the foreclosure. We want you to keep your properties. We want you to stay sane. We want you to stay peaceful. And we want you to know that there's so many options available to you to own real estate, sell real estate. And you know what? I'm going to be honest. There's some people that I've talked to that told me I do not want any children, I do not wish to get married, and I do not wish to have real estate. That's okay too. You know, real estate's not for everyone, But what real estate does do, it secures our financial futures. So when we want to secure our financial future, you have to think about the next generation. You may not have any children, but let's think about the nieces and the nephews. Let's think about the grandchildren and the great-grandchildren. You know, it's just not about us anymore. We don't want to just be that generation that only thought about you. Let's think about more than just you and me. We got to think about others. You know, I like to live by the Einstein rule. You serve enough needs, your needs will be serviced too. And I've serviced a lot of needs in my lifetime, and my needs are being serviced. But I can tell you, even though this journey is an interesting journey, I believe that you will be able to buy real estate. I believe you'll be able to sell real estate. I believe that you'll be able to stay in the properties. So if you're one of those people that are interested in real estate and you're trying to decide should you stay or leave, make that phone call. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have in regards to real estate. Real estate really is my life, and I believe in it, and I believe that it will secure our financial futures. So I believe if you have the deep determination to succeed, you will not fail. You know, if it's someone that you know that wants to buy real estate, please tell them that motto: you will not fail. If it's somebody that wants to sell their real estate, have them call me. I'll be more than happy to help them. If it's someone that you know that is losing, they're just depressed because they feel they'll never have an opportunity to purchase, please call me, because there's so many first-time buyer programs that are available to you. So if you're already, don't deny your loan or deny the purchase of a property by yourself in your own room. Find out what your options are. Find out what the resources are available to you, and find out what you need to do. So just because you decide you don't want to buy real estate's not for everybody, but we're trying to secure our financial future for the next generation. So that's why we're trying to tell you that it's important that you own real estate. So again, live this life, buy real estate, and really live the dream. You see, because today is not promised. Yesterday was history, tomorrow is a mystery, and today is a gift. That's why we call it the present. I'll see you next time.